We're going to look at Federalist 53. This is going to be part one. There are a few things that I want you to think about as we read through these papers, especially the ones that have to do with election of the members of the House of Representatives or senators or president, but especially the members of House of Representatives who will be elected every 2 years, is how vast this country is and was at that time. Look on the map right now. I know the map might be a little blurry, but this is where the state of Maine is right now. Okay, it's a very northeast corner of the United States. During the time of the writing of the Constitution of the United States, state of Maine, or this area, Maine, was part of state of Massachusetts. And there were two members from this part of Maine that were going to go to Massachusetts ratifying convention to vote yes or no on this Constitution. They had to take a couple of boats rides, they had to get on a horse, they had to walk. It took them 6 days to get to the Massachusetts ratifying convention. 6 days. And this is one of the smaller states over here, this area. Now, it is hard for us to think about space and the time of travel back then because we're so used to driving our cars, motor vehicle, flying, that we lose track of what distance and time meant back then. So keep that in mind as we go through these, especially in Federalist 53. Madison is again defending biennial elections of the members of the House of Representatives, is that they get elected every 2 years instead of every year, every 6 months, like it was customary in several states. And he refers to it here. So there's two small paragraphs that really are important for you to think about, not only as we go through this paper, but through all of the Federalist Papers. One of them, we will get to it, but I'm just going to give you just a few lines. The important distinction so well understood in America between a constitution established by the people and unalterable by the government, and a law established by the government and alterable by the government, seems to have been little understood and less observed in any other country. He says the beauty of the American system is that a constitution cannot be changed by legislators, senators, members of the House of Representatives. It has to be changed by what they call the fountain of authority, by the people. People have to change it. So he says, in a lot of countries, this is not the case. At that time, especially since America was going to be established as the first republic in a great space, in a huge land. So keep this in mind. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it can't be toyed around with, changed by the legislators. It has to be done by the people. The reason he says that, we will see, is that he brings up the example of the Parliament of Britain, and he says they think they are the fountain of authority. They can actually change the election time anytime they want to, like they have one time. So this is one of the important things about the Constitution of the United States, which is very important. Another important thing here in this paper he refers to as at the beginning of one of the paragraphs. He says, "No man can be a competent legislator who does not add to an upright intention and a sound judgment a certain degree of knowledge of the subject on which he is to legislate." He says that, let's say somebody goes to the House of Representatives, becomes elected. Their qualifications is not just that they have to gain knowledge, be knowledgeable, but an upright intention and a sound judgment. An upright intention means somebody who puts their country and their duty to upholding of freedom, liberty, and the Constitution above and beyond anything, any faction, any group in his or her state. The problem right now in America is that unfortunately that is changed. A lot of these representatives and senators do not really put what is best for the country ahead of their ambition, their people who fund them, people who give them money, do them favors, things like that. So that's one of the problems we have right now. But I wanted to let you see what he says here, because Madison, whether it's Federalist 10, whether it's Hamilton and different Federalists, they say if you do not learn to put what is best for all these states on top of, above and beyond what is best for any particular state or locality, then you're just messing things up. All right, I'll start reading from the beginning of Federalist 53. "I shall here perhaps be reminded of a current observation that where annual elections end, tyranny begins." This was one of those sayings that had become so popular at the time of the revolution, right afterwards. If you don't have annual elections, the system will tend to go towards tyranny. And then Madison has a commentary on this. He continues, "If it be true, as has often been remarked, that sayings which become proverbial are generally founded in reason, it is not less true that when once established, they are often applied to cases to which the reason of them does not extend. I need not look for a proof beyond the case before us. What is the reason on which this proverbial observation is founded? No man will subject himself to the ridicule of pretending that any natural connection subsists between the sun or the seasons, and the period within which human virtue can bear the temptations of power. Happily for mankind, liberty is not, in this respect, confined to any single point of time, but lies within extremes which afford sufficient latitude for all the variations which may be required by the various situations and circumstances of civil society. The election of magistrates might be, if it were found expedient, as in some instances it actually has been, daily, weekly, or monthly, as well as annual. And if circumstances may require a deviation from the rule on one side, why not also on the other side? Turning our attention to the periods established among ourselves for the election of the most numerous branches of the state legislatures, we find them by no means coinciding any more in this instance than in the elections of other civil magistrates. In Connecticut and Rhode Island, the periods are half yearly. In other states, South Carolina excepted, they are annual. In South Carolina, they are biennial, as is proposed in the federal government. Hence, here is a difference as 4-1 between the longest and the shortest periods. And yet, it would not be easy to show that Connecticut or Rhode Island is better governed or enjoys a greater share of rational liberty than South Carolina, or that either the one or the other of the states is distinguished in these respects and by these causes from the states whose elections are different from both. So he looks at the election periods in different states. He says 2 of them are every 6 months. 1 is every 2 years, and that's South Carolina. The rest of them are annual. He says you don't see any one being governed any better than the other. So biennial elections for the members of House of Representatives is a good idea. 2 years is a good idea. Here pretty soon is going to start talking about the distance they have to travel and other reasons. But in this paragraph, he just says, look at the other states. Most of them have annual elections. 2 have elections every 6 months, and only state of South Carolina has elections every 2 years. And you can't say one is governed better than the other on the count of the time of their elections or frequency of their elections.